Hello and welcome to the Solar Decathlon Design Challenge webinars. Today we'll be talking about Into the Final Stretch. My name is Rachel Romero and I'm from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory and I am your Design Challenge Competition Manager. With me, I have Assistant Competition Manager Amanda Kirkby. We will be going over some great information today. So you have done a lot of amazing work to date. So this is your webinar before your final submission. The final submission includes a final project summary, your design narrative, and multimedia project pitch. We will have a team check-in on March 29th before that is due on April 5th. We will have one more webinar and team check-in before April 19th when your final presentation is due. And the Solar Decathlon competition event is April 22nd through 24th, and we'll be talking about details of all of those today. So what is the final submission? This is your most complicated submission to date, but I know you have this all taken care of. First is an updated project summary, and we'll talk more details of all of these pieces. You're going to have a design narrative, 3 project images, your multimedia project pitch, and optional supplemental documentation. Really important here today, we will reiterate it several times, is to read the rules for all the deliverable requirements. This is so important to read them before, read them right before, after you finish, and then right before you submit. So make sure you refer back to those as your jurors and others will be looking at the rules as well. We are so excited to be selecting your winning teams, and we'll be going over all of that. So first is your project summary. Think of this as living on the solardecathlon.gov website. So when you're designing it, have that in mind. So you're going to want to give a concise overview of the project on the first page and really highlight your unique project aspects. A good document balances your text and imagery to give something that's enjoyable to read. Take some time to proofread it for grammar to make sure that it's right, and consider asking someone else to read it as well, who's maybe outside the team. Make sure you follow all the formatting requirements in the rules and keep it to no more than 2 pages. We do have a template on the project site if that is helpful, and just continue to remember that an external audience will be reading this. You can check out some other ones from past winning teams on the website. Next, you are going to be putting together your design narrative. This is your most important document. Follow the formatting requirements so jurors can quickly review this. We encourage you to look at previous years from examples, knowing that the rules may have changed in between those years. So carefully, look at that as an example, but really know that you need to follow the rules for this year. Stick to the page requirements. This is so important. When jurors see that teams have gone outside the page requirements, that can hurt your presentation score. And again, balance text and images throughout the design narrative to provide a good reading experience for your jurors. So the first part of this is front matter. Make sure you have a cover with your team name and division and school listed on there. You'll have a table of contents so jurors can navigate around to find things, and a list of figures and tables as applicable. Section 1 is your design constraints and goals. So very specifically on that. Section 2 is a contest narrative, so a narrative for each contest section. And then you'll have applicable appendices. This design narrative comes in one PDF document, and your jurors will be pre-reading this before listening to your presentation. So Amanda will detail that process so you have an understanding of how this document fits into the competition. Next, you'll be working on your multimedia pitch. This is going to be a 90-second video of your work. So really highlight the unique project aspects, make it fun and catchy, and really think here about social media attention spans. What do you want to see on social media? How long are you going to be? 90 seconds can feel really short, so just remember that. Winning teams will have their video posted, so consider how you want to be remembered through the Solar Decathlon when you're working on this. Next, we have the team images. I love getting these every year. It is my favorite piece to look at. I love seeing your smiling faces in the competition. So consider these images were taken during the pandemic, but we encourage you to be creative. Think about your school and your project and your team culture. We will use these in future years as well. So make sure you take some time to think about it so we can see the makeup of your team. So we love the creativity and we can't wait to share those. Finally, you can do supplemental documentation. This is optional and an option for you to provide more work and detail than what is provided in the project narrative. So this would be details that show your team's work. And I do want to note that the jurors are not required to read this. So they may read it and they may go looking for some information, or they may not, and that is up to them. But if you'd like a place to include all your team's work, that is in your supplemental documentation. It's not required to submit though. So when you're thinking about what goes in there, think about if that detail is essential to understanding the project. If you answer that question, yes, consider putting it in your project design narrative. If you say no, you could put it in your supplemental documentation. So, all right. And finally, you have your presentation slides. So these slides are submitted a few days before the competition. They are due April 19th via a separate link. So they are not on the project site. It will be through a box submission link. So really, I encourage you to take the time between the submission of your design narrative and presentation slides as an opportunity to really refine and practice your slides. So put them together and then give a presentation to your faculty advisor, your industry partner, and then refine them and continue to practice and figure out how you're going to do that. The same slides will be used for grand juror presentations for our first place winning teams. So keep that in mind as you move forward. Make sure you use clean, clear imagery to emphasize your key points. And finally, the guiding question here on your presentation slides is, how are you going to sell your project to the jurors? Think of them as potential buyers of your project or potential owners. What do they want to hear? How they want to hear how your project stands out. So really, you want to deliver an impact to the jurors. With that, I'll pass it over to Amanda for some additional details.
Thank you, Rachel. So a few more resources to help you draft these deliverables and head into that final submission due date of April 5th. We have a few templates on the project site under quick links. There's a project summary template, Word form that you can edit to your needs, as well as a final design narrative template on there as well. So feel free to use these as a starting point. You're welcome to create your own template and use your own imagery, and but this is a good guidance document to help you organize how you draft your final narrative. Another few resources on the project site under quick links are the past competition examples. So these are helpful to know where you're headed and what past successful teams have put forth in their final design narratives and project submissions, and see the caliber of designs at that stage. So it's helpful to frame your own project and bring your own flair into that as well, but to know where you're headed and what you should include in that design narrative. So some helpful examples. A few common feedback from the semifinal stage that will also be helpful in moving forward with your final submission. Be sure to address all aspects of the evaluation criteria. This is a common feedback from our jurors that building codes and standards weren't addressed across the board all the time. Some teams did, some teams didn't, but be sure to really address all aspects of that evaluation criteria and connect it back to your project, back to your specific target market, and bring into the next point as well. Next common feedback was addressing each of those contests and bringing it back to your target market, back to your site, to your specific project, and make comments specific to your climate, those types of items as well. Another common point of feedback is to make your text and image stand out to highlight key project data. The teams that really stand out in their reports they have a good balance of text and images. As Rachel said before, things stand out and images are selected to really highlight what those key project elements are and make it stand out to your jurors. Jurors are reading a lot of these reports. They're long, so whatever you can do and include and communicate your project in such a way that it stands out will help your team be successful in this final submission stage. Finally, practice, 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 especially for your presentation coming up in April. Really emphasize being familiar with both virtual and live presentation formats, be familiar with your technical aspects, navigating Zoom, practice in front of multiple audiences, get feedback, have people help and provide guidance for your presentation style, work with your team, make sure that you are dialed in for that April event. And we'll have more details in a future webinar on that specific presentation, but not too early to think ahead. And for our exhibition team, so finalists will be presenting at the competition event, but all teams who complete the final deliverables that are outlined in this webinar will be invited to participate in the competition event. And you can showcase your design at the competition event, visit and tour world-class research facilities, meeting leading industry experts, connect with peers. It really is a great experience. So be sure, no matter finalist, non-finalist, be sure to finish that project submission and submit it on time for that April 5th deadline. And looking ahead to the final competition event, the dates will be April 22nd through 24th. It will be a hybrid event with both virtual and in-person opportunities to participate. Finalists will present their designs to jurors for winner selection, and will also receive valuable feedback on their design projects and an opportunity to connect both with peers and industry experts. It really is a high energy, fun event. It's high stakes, but also a very valuable experience for you to just talk about building science. So get ready, get excited. A few last minute items or last items to emphasize, but your project submission, so looking ahead on what you will be evaluated at that final competition event and in your final submissions, but on all 10 contests. So really read the rules, again, re-emphasizing what Rachel said earlier, but read the rules for all contest criteria. Jurors will be looking through all those contest criteria points and looking at how you understand and apply building science in your project, how your team aligns project design with the competition intent, and excellence in all criteria across all 10 contests. And the jurors will be evaluating on the scale of 1 misses expectations all the way to 5 eclipses expectations. So be sure to read the rules for more details, but emphasizing the importance of knowing how you're going to be evaluated so you can frame your final submission deliverables in that light. Looking ahead to the timeline moving forward. So teams submit your final submissions on April 5th, and then we'll have a period of preliminary scoring where your division jurors will evaluate your project submissions before the project event, or before the competition event, excuse me. And then once we get to that competition event in April, we will have division presentations with your jurors, live with question and answer period, and really a chance for the jurors to ask you about your project, dive into the details, and see your team's handle on your project, and get into those design details. After that presentation, the jurors will deliberate and select their top 3 teams for each division for second and third place, at which point we'll announce those division awards, and the first place team in each division will move on to the final stage, which is the grand juror presentation, presenting to 3 industry experts who have not seen any of the designs before, and they will be evaluating on criteria also outlined in the rules to select our residential and grand winners, so those final awards. So here's a look at the timeline. Knowing how you're going to be evaluated can really help you frame your final submission deliverables as well as your presentation, and make sure your team is prepared for the final competition event. And with that, I'll pass it back to Rachel for a few final reminders.
Great. That is just an great to have an understanding of how a team gets from submission to winning grand winner. So excited about that. So final important dates. That final submission and the documents that I went through earlier are due April 5th at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Please make sure that you submit early and you are ensure that all of your documentation is in well before that deadline. Often these are big files and there can be difficulty with submission or making sure you're meeting the criteria. So we just cannot state it enough to get things in early. Our next team check-in will be March 29th at 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We look forward to taking your questions at that time. I just want to remind you that your goal as a team is to be shooting to be the grand winner in residential or commercial. And we are so excited to be giving away some stellar trophies, which we'll be unveiling soon, for those winners. And we cannot wait to see who that is. So is that your team? We hope so. All right. Thank you so much for being with us today. Again, make sure you share your progress using hashtag SolarDecathlon Design and connecting with us on our various social media platforms. This again cannot be possible without our sponsors. They are just so supportive. They are looking forward to potentially meeting and interacting with you at the competition event and speaking to you as well. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at sddesign@nrel.gov and we will get those covered. Thank you.